everyone, thanks so much for joining us today. This is the MarTech NYC panel on AdWords. So I'm thankful that you're all able to make it out. Thankfully also that the snow subsided a little bit to make that a little easier. So today what we're going to be going over is Google AdWords. So Google AdWords is a very powerful way of digital advertising. It's got a large proportion and percentage of the spend in digital advertising. Obviously Facebook is out there too. We'll do without the mic. And we're just going to talk a little bit about the foundations. We're going to cover that, some of the foundations, some of the basics. How many people here would categorize yourself as beginners in AdWords? Okay, about half. How many people more like mid-level and advanced? Okay, so great. That's kind of what I was expecting. About maybe 60% more beginner, and then 40% more kind of mid-level to advanced. So that's what we're going to talk about today. The panel itself is going to be about 45 minutes, and then after that we're going to do Q&A. So if you have questions, any questions that I failed to answer, or better questions than mine, which won't be a really high bar to hurdle over, then you will have the opportunity to ask those questions. First, before we introduce the panel, just want to go over the sponsors. First of all, Ali. This is the great space that you're in right now. Obviously, they're a co-working space. They do events, and it's a great space to do events as well as to have your next office here. So it kind of speaks for itself. It's a beautiful space. The second sponsor is Aori, and Aori is actually an AdWords tool. So this is an optimization tool that's actually based on the SCAG campaign technique. So that's a strategy that we'll maybe touch on a little bit today in the conversation. And that stands for single keyword ad groups. And it's a way to get a little bit more granular and optimize a little bit more on a deeper level than the typical way that Google recommends putting in keywords into ad groups. The second sponsor is RallyMine, as you see here. And RallyMine is actually a landing page builder tool. So if you're into marketing technology, you might know about the different landing page tools. How this is different is that it's actually if you need like 100, 500, or 1,000 landing pages. So think if you're like a franchise restaurant, like, I don't know, Chili's or Olive Garden, pick really two bad ones. If you need like landing pages for all of your locations across the world or the US, you can use a tool like RallyMine. It's super cool. You can actually manage it from a Google Sheet, and basically you can put in like your analytics code. You can put in like custom pictures for each location, custom colors. Everything's managed in a Google Sheet. So if you have any questions about either Aori or RallyMine, I'd be happy to answer those. Just a little bit about myself quickly before we get into the panelists. My name's Steven Stanczak. I obviously run MarTech NYC. I also have a blog called MarTech Whiz, which is all about marketing technology. Then I also help head up partnerships at Online Geniuses, which is a digital marketing community on Slack. Anyone part of OG? Okay, we got a few. Nice. Online Geniuses is a free digital marketing community. You should definitely join. And then I also do digital marketing consulting. I do more of the technical aspects like technical marketing, technical SEO, analytics, conversion rate optimization, and things like that. Okay. Before we get into the panel, I lied. One more thing. We do have a giveaway. So Aori, the AdWords tool, is actually giving a free year away to MarTech NYC members. So this link is actually in the Meetup or Eventbrite, but if you want to go in here, you can log in and win a free year of the AdWords optimization tool. Keep in mind there is a www.2, not just regular www. And we'll set that out afterwards and give out the prize on Friday. You have a good chance of winning because I think right now there's probably like 15 people who are entered to win. So if you're into AdWords tools, that's one. Without further ado, we're gonna I'll let the panel introduce themselves, starting with Todd Saunders, who has an AdWords tool of his own. Hopefully invite us.
Can you guys hear me? Oh, nice. Yeah, so my name is Todd. I'm actually an ex-Googler. I used to work on the AdWords team for a couple of years out in San Francisco. I'm now the CEO and founder of a company called AdHawk. We're based in New York, and basically what we do is we build software to help customers, agencies, and franchises advertise across Facebook and Google. So that's a little bit on my background. Pass it off.
Make sure I'm doing this right. Hey everyone, my name is Matt Devinney. I am a paid search account lead. Testing. At Elite SEM. We're a small-ish digital marketing agency. I've been with them for about 3 years, in the industry for a little over 5 years, and I've previously been at Sapient Razorfish, and Performix as well, managing small-tier clients, mid-tier, and also top-tier AdWords clients.
Hi, I'm Deidrea Miller, and I'm a freelance digital strategist. I recently was head of digital comms for National Grid for the United States, and I have a lot of experience doing digital transformation work and digital strategy in the utility space.
Hi, my name is Geoff Shively, and I'm currently a freelance, I'd say like embedded CMO or Chief Experience Officer for various companies, usually small entrepreneurial companies. A serial entrepreneur myself, I like empowering entrepreneurs. And I tend to focus on e-commerce, marketing, and customer experience, driving growth from first ad impression to true fandom.
The first question I wanted to ask was, how do you recommend someone, obviously a lot of people here are learning about AdWords, how do you recommend learning about AdWords other than events like this? And maybe even more importantly, how do you recommend staying up to date because things change so quickly?
Yeah, I'll take that first. So I think there's two main ways to stay up to date and also learn more about AdWords. The first one I love is searchengineland.com. That's a great resource for all new betas, all new tactics, tips about AdWords. It spans more than AdWords. It's also around Bing, Yahoo, and a few other channels as well. The other aspect that I think is very important is also the new Academy for Ads in Google. If anyone is not familiar with that, I highly suggest you look at that. That is basically Google's new platform for all things AdWords. You can get trainings on display, mobile, shopping, search, you name it. And there's also certifications that you can take and pass and put that on your LinkedIn to get some more followers for you.
I'd also add there's really great podcasts out there. So there's SEO 101 with the former head of SEO for Advanced Media, which is great, and also the paid search podcast as well, which are great. You can listen to them on the subway.
Cool, thanks. I think something there's a lot of data around micro-learning and learning as you go, and it can be a really big thing to, a big AdWords itself to learn everything in the very beginning. So I think, staying up on those things is current, and being current on, search engine land and different blogs and podcasts is great. Additionally, as you go and you're building, when you hit an area where you don't know enough about, you might want to pop over to Udemy or Coursera or Udacity. I forget how you say it, but any of those you can usually get. Udemy has some great $10 courses that you can figure out, okay, I want to understand negative keywords better, so how do I do this? Go on, do a 3-hour course and then apply your learning right away. And the act of applying it after learning it is proven to really help you kind of figure it out. A lot of companies now are using these micro-learning methods internally to help skill up and teach their people, and it can be really effective.
All right, so I'm just going to try to give a different perspective than the other ones because I agree with all of those. But I would say you have to look at it in two ways. There's the practical understanding of how it works, which I think you can get done with the Academy, Search Engine Land, the podcasts, all the stuff that was just mentioned. But there's also something to be said with navigating the actual AdWords dashboard and just knocking your head around in there, right? There's so many nooks and crannies and things that you'll only ever know if you've been in one of those experiences. So it's just a matter of time and years spent inside of AdWords. The good news is that AdWords is launching a new dashboard. So if you have been a seasoned AdWords person for a long time, you're now at pretty close to even playing field with people that are just starting because the dashboard is so new. So for a lot of you guys that are just starting out, it might be worthwhile kind of jumping into the new dashboard, getting a head start, and maybe it's worth spending $50 or $100 a month on just your own keywords and banging your head through it a little bit.
How do you see AdWords where do you see AdWords spot in the continuum of all the digital advertising options that are out there? When would you recommend someone uses AdWords versus Facebook versus content versus SEO? Are there specific instances or specific companies or industries where you feel like that's a good fit or maybe a bad fit for AdWords?
So I'll try to tee off a little bit of this. The one thing I would say is when you're getting started with AdWords, know that you're not going to turn it on and it's not just going to work overnight, right? You need data, you optimize by data, you make decisions with data. And if you talk to most agencies or consultants or people that are in this space, they will tell you that up front, that we need a couple of months of time or a couple of months of data to really make good decisions. So regardless of whether you decide to use Facebook or AdWords or display or Google Shopping, I think that's different based on what your business is, and we could debate what's better. Probably for everyone here has a strong opinion. One thing I would just recommend before diving into that is it takes data. You're not just going to build a campaign, open an AdWords account tomorrow, and wake up the next morning with sales. That's just not how it works. So just know it takes data, it takes time to get it down to the most efficiency as possible.
Yeah, I think that's also a pretty tricky question because different channels have different ways to go about finding your audience. So when you look at something like display, where people are browsing different websites, something like social, where they're looking at content related to things that they like as well. But something like AdWords, I think, is more long-lasting because you know exactly what someone is searching for. You're not guessing like you would be on display. So I would say, based on that, I see AdWords being around for a long time, but also the way they've progressed over the past 3 years, more specifically, in my opinion, you're going to hear this a lot from me, but AI. The AdWords AI is getting very smart, and they're rolling out more and more changes to make it less work for you and more work on the machine itself. So as Todd mentioned, data is your friend. You're not going to just turn stuff on. As you collect data, that's when AdWords will start to get smarter and smarter and smarter. These other platforms like Facebook are starting to do that as well with their algorithms, but I still think AdWords is a little bit ahead of them, but that remains to be seen over the next, I'd say, 2 years, which is really important in my opinion for the AI world.
I'm going to give a really simple answer, I think, which is I always think of AdWords as you're looking for people who are in market for your service. It's not really a brand awareness play. It's I'm sitting on a street corner and I need to find some pizza. Where's the best pizza? I know that's a really stupid answer, but that's what I really see using AdWords for. The other channels can take quite a lot. Not that AdWords doesn't take a lot of resources. It takes time. It takes diligence to really keep an eye on your keywords and how they're performing every week. But I would say absolutely. It's just I think conversions and driving engagement with your business if you're in market for a particular service.
That was spot on. And keeping it really simple is important. You mentioned moments. So Google talks a lot about micro moments, these different moments in which people have intent. They're doing something. They're looking for a pizza. They're looking for a car. They're looking for a hotel. Whatever they're looking for, you find someone who's in market for that. You'll get it. Whereas, like you said, brand awareness, it's not necessarily something that's going to bring brand awareness. If someone's not looking for that thing, they might not even see your brand or skip over it. Even if you have a well-known brand, if you're not providing the thing they're looking for in that moment. And I think that brings up a point of needing to really figure out what your value, your true value is, and placing that in front of the right people at the right time, which brings up the other point of figuring out who your customer really is. Who is the best person who's going to get the most value out of your product and service, because you don't want everyone to click. It's too expensive. You can make the most persuasive, either ethically or unethically manipulative ad to bring people to your site, But if they're the wrong customer and then they convert, that's not a good thing, because then you have to service that person. Then you're gonna lose out. If they're not going to get the most value out of your service or your product, then they don't turn into a word of mouth advocate of your product, which should be, I believe, the end goal of most businesses, is giving people a great customer experience, bring the right people in so that they can turn into a great advocate. So, keeping that in mind when you're building things is like, who do I actually want to discourage from clicking this ad? Who do I want to align with the right value in the right moment to click this actual ad in this moment? And then I think the other piece is, AdWords as a whole has a lot of different extensions, and there's a lot of sub-elements that you can use within it, meaning that whether you're using AdWords search or you're using shopping or something else, one might not work for you, but another one might. So if you have a very visual product and you're a retailer, Google Shopping with an image might work better than a text ad. So if you don't find one thing that works after taking a couple months of time, you could try some of the other extensions and things as well.
I'll just make some generalizations and try to give some concrete-ish answers. At least this is definitely a generalization, but what I would say is what I see is Facebook, easier to get started, easier to get set up. If you want to build a campaign quickly and test some things, Facebook works really well. If you're looking for a scalable, longer-term, less of a ceiling, more data-driven solution, generally Google Search is going to be your friend. They're wildly different. Right? Google is definitely harder. Google Search is definitely harder, definitely more expensive. The pros is you serve ads to people that are searching for exactly what you're looking for, right? So if I am a locksmith, I can bid on the word emergency locksmith, and that's very black or white. However, if you are Airbnb, for example, and you need to tell the story of why you do this, or you need a big image, or you need to tell more of a story than just someone searching for it, maybe Facebook or Google Display is a better answer for you. That's a very big generalization, and I'm just going to put that out there one more time, but generally Facebook's a little easier to get set up. Their algorithm and their AI is really good at just get set up and get started, and from what I've seen, Google's a little bit more scalable but harder to get going from day one.
I would also add that a lot of the times when I've been brought in to help my companies or my employers with their web assets, if you don't have a great website that loads fast and has great images and is easy to navigate, do not waste your money on AdWords. AdWords, I think, is one of those channels that requires investment in your core digital assets that a lot of folks really, I think what you said before, you're going to just turn it on. But if you have a crap website, don't send people there. Go through Facebook and create something nice there.
Okay, so once you have the right customer, as we were talking about a little bit, let's just start off pretty broadly. What are some of the best ways to target that customer, and maybe what are some of your favorite tips for talking about some of those nooks and crannies that AdWords offers? What are maybe some things that some people can try tomorrow once they get back to the office to help them target the right audience?
So I'll start this off. So this answer is going to be different for pretty much any client, any vertical. It really, in my opinion, depends on what your brand awareness is like right now. Are people familiar with your brand? What's the product you're selling? Because if you're new to the game and you're, let's say, a new competitor in the food delivery service, there's a lot of new movers in that realm. If you're new to that, you're going to need to focus on brand awareness, probably some competitor conquesting where you're actively bidding on competitor terms. But one of my favorite tools, if you are pretty far along, I love dynamic search ads. Not to kind of jump too far ahead, I know there's a lot way before that, but assuming you do already have a pretty robust campaign structure in place, for those of you who do not know dynamic search ads, it's a really, really great tool to kind of fill in gaps and really try to expand out your inventory to whatever people are searching on. So there's two main ways to do that. Google's tool can either crawl your website and find all pages and find all your products. And there's also a new feature that's been out for, I believe, 2 years that I've been utilizing. It's called DSA Page Speeds. And that's basically just a shopping campaign translated to a search campaign. It's basically utilizing a product feed that you have. So all the products that you have, you can specify exactly which products you want an ad to show for. The reason I like them is because, as I already mentioned, it kind of fills in gaps, gets you extreme coverage very quick. But the great thing about DSAs are two things, in my opinion. The landing page experience is the exact product that is either crawled or matched to with the page feed. So you're sending someone to a very specific landing page based on their query. The second aspect that I like a lot is the ad itself is going to be tailored dynamically to the landing page / keyword per se. But it's mainly just giving you the option to have a very robust, very tailored creative to someone's search and send them to the exact product that they searched on. So there's a lot more, but I just wanted to jump on that one first.
All right, so I'm going to try to give. Does anyone have an e-commerce store? Is that big? Okay, enough people. So I'll just use an example. If you're an e-commerce store and you're trying to use Google, and I only had, let's just say, $1,000 a month to spend, how would I approach this? I would spend it all with Google Shopping. Google Shopping, like we mentioned earlier, is basically those images when you're searching for red shoes. You see a bunch of pictures of red shoes on Google with the price and the image. What's great about that is the customer knows what it looks like. They know the price before clicking on it, right? Whereas a text ad is great, and dynamic search ads are great. It is definitely part of the whole funnel of strategies. You don't necessarily know the price. You don't necessarily know the style. You don't know if the customer likes it before clicking on it. So if I was an e-commerce store and I was wanting to utilize Google, the first thing I would do is I would use Google Shopping. I would look up, and if you are an e-commerce store, I would look up what priority levels are, basically how Google Shopping works so that everyone knows. You put in a bunch of titles and descriptions for all your products. If you're on Shopify or one of the other big platforms, there's actually a plugin that will do all that for you. And then all you do in a very basic sense is connect that to what's called Merchant Center, which is then connected to Google. Google takes your titles and descriptions and basically turns them into keywords. So there's a lot less day-to-day keyword management that you'll have to do. That's all hosted by your website or the feed. And that makes it really easy for e-commerce stores to get up and running. The next thing I would do if I was an e-commerce store would be using dynamic remarketing. What that is you've ever clicked on an ad on Amazon and that product has followed you around the internet. That is how dynamic remarketing works. So it is showing ads to people that have been to your website but not bought your product and showing you that specific product around the internet. So I just threw out e-commerce just to give a more concrete example, but there are definitely other things based on the vertical in the business.
Google Shopping is awesome for the visual, like you were saying. I think there's a cool other benefit that I found recently in Google Shopping and testing it on branded terms and non-branded terms, where Google Shopping will tend to lead someone to a product description page. So if they search for the brand and the brand is known for a hero product, they can go. Usually, you can save them 3 clicks in the journey by clicking on. They click on the shopping, the picture of the product, and then take them deeper into the site. And so you can see a higher conversion, other things that might have been in their way on the, kind of a text or organic search result to get to the same place. I think one of the things that is really, really important, I mentioned a moment ago, is defining your customer before you start, all these processes. Or if you've already started AdWords and marketing and you found some success, and you haven't really defined clearly, explicitly who you believe your customer is or who you want your customer to be, to take a moment and do that and develop some basic customer personas. But I would challenge personas and everyone to kind of go one step further, as personas can really guide you to, especially when we're talking about search, can be kind of difficult to target. They can get really general. Is look at the jobs to be done methodology. You could just search jobs to be done, and it's a way of really getting to the core value of what your product is doing for, or products or services for the people that are searching. And it helps you solidify things down into one sentence in a really concrete way of saying, this is what my product does for this person in this time, in this moment, back to kind of the Google micro moments thing. And if you blend together personas with the job that basically, your persona, Jane from New York City, who's looking for SoulCycle on Wednesdays or whatever it might be, you put the job to be done, the job that that your product is doing for the person in that persona, and it kind of anchors it, and then you can then use data that you're getting throughout the process of testing to say this persona is either being validated or you're shifting it to something else and changing it. So really taking a minute to figure out who your customer is and what the message they're going to want to see is, and then revisiting that consistently, because as mentioned before, all this stuff is testing and looking at things with a really humble kind of healthy attitude towards failure and towards things, and remembering that like this stuff is changing so fast that if you really, even when you think you might not know, so keep questioning everything you see, and kind of reevaluating it. And I've actually made like a free guide. There's no financial incentive to it if you want. It's just a Google Doc that is like some templates on building personas, because I found a lot of people don't go through that in the very beginning, and you start businesses and you start having success with AdWords and such, and kind of a lot of people kind of skip that step. So if anyone who wants that, I'll give it to you afterwards.
Yes. I guess my question is actually for the audience. Do folks know what we're talking about? When we're saying testing. Yeah? No. I see some people saying no. Because I think it's okay. All right. So we're talking about, when I think of testing, I think about A/B testing, which is actually like giving 2 or maybe 3 versions of your ad, more, right? Good Google guy, right? And you're actually testing them in real time to see, do people like my moving ad that says movers $100 an hour versus a headline that says movers in New York City will pack everything. Obviously that's really long, but it's really simple. I just think it's really important that sometimes I find when we're talking about digital marketing and a lot of these terms that sometimes we break them down to what they actually mean. So you're talking about is testing different audiences. So that's something that you would see in your Google Analytics after you start running your campaign. Where is my audience coming from? How long are they spending on my site? You'll be able to kind of begin to see from some of the demographic data who is interested in your product. Because I personally find that I will disagree with you. Personas are good to a certain point, but the reason why these tools are so powerful is that they actually show us sometimes that the people that we assumed were interested in our product or our service are not the person that we actually thought they were. So,
I agree with that.
yeah, so, we all have this idea in our mind of who our ideal customer is, but in a lot of cases, that's just not the truth. So that's what I would say. And also, no, and I was just going to say, I was going to ask you guys, are there any other testing things that we test besides A/B testing, messaging, demographics, what else?
I think time of day, all those kind of, different, and that's key, like testing specifically to inform your personas and go back and change them based on what you learn. But time of day, I think, is something huge to test. Day parting, I think it's called now, is like you can turn your ads on and off for certain times of day, because you might find that no one's converting at 2 a.m., but you're getting tons of clicks and you're wasting a bunch of money. So only show your ad between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. because that's where your highest time is. So I think little things like that, able to clean up waste and target and figure out more of who your customer is useful.
Yeah, I'll also just say I agree with everything that's been said. Going back to both your points, testing and audiences. I think audiences is one of the biggest things that my company has been discussing over the past year. It's really, chances are, if you ask, let's say, a president, CEO, whatever company you're working with, who's your demographic, what's your makeup of your audience, they might say something, but when it comes down to it, it's the data that matters. Across all these different platforms, whether it be Facebook or Google, you name it, there's a lot of data to be had that's outside of just a certain product or keyword. As you guys mentioned, we can already look at device, audience, age, gender, household income, location, anything you can think of. That's how Google is also treating this data as well. And it's really important to kind of, before you dive into anything, again, try to figure out what your audience is, make an assumption, and then as you test things, get stuff in the market, look at the data and see if it aligns with you, because chances are it probably won't. And with all these tools, you can actually specifically target to them, allocate your money towards what works, allocate away from what does not work, and drive a better ROI.
Yeah, and before you do any testing, you should look at the personas and all of that, but you should also know what you're testing for. Like, what does success look like? We talk to customers all the time, and we ask, what is your goal? What is success? What is the lifetime value of your customer? And if you don't know that, then you're kind of just testing to test. So make sure you know what success looks like, number one. Number two, although I'm a big believer in testing, it really depends on your budget, how much testing to do, right? If you're spending $1,000 a month, maybe running 2 tests works. But if you run 5 tests, then it's going to take you 6 months to see statistical significance on any of those tests. So I'm a big believer in testing, but there is also a thing of like over-testing and never getting significant amount of data to actually make a decision. So just walk that line a little bit based on your own budget.
Okay, great. So when you're moving into, let's just move into actually creating the more traditional ad, as we all know, we've seen a million of them, is the text ad. So do you have any advice or any strategies in terms of wins you've had or success you've had in the best way of approaching and writing the headline, display URL, as well as the call to action?
Interesting. The only unique thing I could probably think of off the bat is with a Google ad, you can use what's called dynamic keyword insertion. I could draw out how to do that, but if you look up dynamic keyword insertion, it's probably easier. But basically what that is when there's 2 headlines, right? So there's headline 1, headline 2, and then there's a description in a normal Google text ad. You can replace one of those headlines or both of them. You would probably only do one. With what's called dynamic keyword insertion. And what that'll do is when a person searches something, it'll replace that headline with what they actually searched. So you can make it basically mimic their search as long as it's within a certain amount of characters. So that's definitely something that comes to mind when I think about text ads.
So also with ads, picture yourself searching on Google and you see an ad. What do you see first? Chances are it's not the display URL, it's not the description line, it's the headline. Usually what I've seen in the past alongside DKI, dynamic keyword insertion, depending on what you want your user to do on your site, do you want them to fill out a lead form, do you want them to buy, do you want them just to sign up for an email? That's going to really dictate what type of language you want in your either description line, but in my opinion, the headline. The headline is where I think you can really have that eye-opening, really attention-grabbing type of phrase to kind of draw that user in, because let's face it, the main reason you need to be testing ad copy is probably in the non-brand or sometimes basically just the non-brand side of things, so there's going to be other competitors there. So how does your ad stand out? Before you write your ad, I would definitely look at all the competitor ads. Just pick out themes. Are they looking at free shipping? Are they looking at fast returns? What's the common theme? How do you differentiate yourself from them? But more importantly, how does that align with your business, the goal that you want your user to take, and then also what's on the landing page is big. So personally, I'll just say what I love to kind of have in my headlines. I try to think about the top 3 best highlights of whatever brand I'm working on. Again, do they have free shipping? Do they have great customer service? Do they have the lowest prices around? Test. There's a great thing in Google AdWords called drafts and experiments. I don't know if anyone has tested with that before, but basically a draft and experiment allows you to clone a campaign. And in that clone campaign, you can make any of 1, 2, 3 changes you want. So you can have the same keyword running, but have a different ad show. There's a lot of different ways to do ad copy testing, but that's one of them. So yeah, otherwise, I really like to kind of differentiate myself from my competitors. So I do some research beforehand and then come to the drawing board with what I think might work best. I have about 2 to 3 variations running. The only downside of that is it's not a true A/B test. And as Todd mentioned before, you need that statistical significance to really draw those results on. So, yeah, I know it's not a straight answer, but I just want to give that context.
I agree with checking the competitor landscape. I think it's really valuable to writing your ad copy. But I think speak English and just be straightforward and tell people your unique selling proposition. So free shipping, $15 an hour for a dog walker. I think being transparent and just being upfront, I've seen that perform very well, as opposed to trying to squeeze in buzzwords and sort of being cute. Oh, and I love reflexive questions. I always like that. So
Cool. That's awesome.
So I guess the next stage after you do the text ad, if you're not using extensions, I'm sure a lot of you are, but if you're not familiar with them, they're a very powerful way, and you actually get some free real estate on Google's front page at no additional cost by adding extensions. So I just obviously wanted to touch on extensions, and maybe just go into one of your favorite ones, or one that you've had success with, or maybe one that's lesser known that people could take advantage of. Yeah, one that you really like. I got started.
So, ad extensions, before I say my favorite one, I also wanted to say that they are a factor in your ad rank quality score. So by actually adding those in, you're going to increase your quality score and, more importantly, decrease what you pay to get into whatever position that you're trying to get in. So that is a big factor now. I think over the past year or so, Google started to add that in. My favorite extension, I really like Sitelink Extensions. I think you probably all will probably say that. Two reasons. Number one, real estate. They take up a lot of real estate on the SERP, so you're pushing down your competitors. You're getting more detail and information about your brand or product to the user before they even need to click on the landing page. And then also on the landing page side, you can direct users to potentially 4 other links based on whatever they're searching for. So if someone searches on a TV and you see a TV ad, chances are the site links may include something like HDTVs or 4K TVs or Blu-ray players, just a way to kind of increase your inventory to your customer itself.
I've done a lot of advocacy campaigns, and I really like the call extension. I think it provides a lot of value, and the person, our clients only pay for people who call, but they're super engaged on a particular issue. In some cases, leaving voicemails for public officials. So I'd say the call extension.
Cool. Both of those are favorites as well. I think the point about taking up real estate and then decreasing your total kind of path to conversion. Anything you can do to get someone the information they're looking for sooner with less clicks, you're going to see usually a higher conversion rate and hopefully a happier customer. Call's great. Google Local is really interesting. I messed with that for the first time in November, December, and generated a lot of calls for a local retail client, but also a lot of high intent clicks for direction, which is really interesting. So that manifests itself in a few ways, but it's really neat with Google Local Maps and being able to throw an ad in there in the local map search results. So someone who's searching for a specific item that a store carries. If any of you have click and mortar businesses or a retail storefront, that can be really useful to bringing people to a physical location, who are actually looking to visit.
Yeah, I would say if you are running ads, it would be a tough argument for me to say every customer should be running Sitelink extensions, call-out extensions, and structured snippet extensions. They make your ad bigger. You can tell more information about what you offer. You can direct them to different pages. There's very few use cases on why you wouldn't use one of those 3. Then there's obviously ones like calls. You wouldn't use a call extension unless you want people to call you. Some people do, some people don't. There's another one, message extensions. You wouldn't want that unless you want people texting you. So there's a whole bunch of them depending on what is important to your business, but I would say no matter what, the site links, call-outs, and structured snippets, there is very little reason you shouldn't be using those 3.
100%. And only use to your point about calls, use the ones that you're going to be able to do really well. Don't turn on calls unless you're able to pick up that phone call. Don't send people a voicemail. Be able to really capture because they're in that moment.
I would say one other thing about call extensions, because that's probably the most frequently used by customers for lead generation. Google offers a forwarding number right within the call extension. So what actually happens is it'll flip on a local number. It won't show your number, but it will show a local number. Again, you can toggle this on or off. The reason I like to toggle it on is because then Google actually records how long those calls lasted. And then what you can tell Google is if a call lasted over 40, 50, 60 seconds, count that as a conversion or a good call, and then you can start optimizing. If you don't do that, and you're just using your phone number and no other third-party service, there's no real way to optimize for quality of call. So if you are going to use call extensions, I would suggest using the forwarding number or some way to track quality or length of call so you can optimize for that, not just a 5-second dial and hang up.
And I'll say the last one I like a lot, promotion extensions. So if you are a brand or you have a client that has a lot of different promotions running for, say, 20% off, 10% off, free shipping, whatever it be, and it changes a lot, promotion extensions are a great way to kind of utilize that extra language that you can have on there. Because remember, every time you create a new ad, you're creating a new ad. You're resetting the ad history, so it basically doesn't have ad history, so you're kind of resetting the quality score. Basically, if you know that you have a lot of promotions running, promotion extensions are a great way to just have that extra text to say, today only, 20% off, use promo code XYZ.
Fantastic. So say we're in a really good spot with our text ads, and then we want to branch off, because AdWords isn't just those text ads that we see so much. We talked a little bit about the shopping, there's video ads, there's display ads. How do you start that conversation in terms of when you're sitting down with a client or with your brand, in terms of what are the things to think about when you're going into some of those more non-traditional, non-text AdWords ads?
Yeah, so I think it depends where you're at with your current strategy and account. Chances are, if you are an e-commerce site, you're going to already be running Google Shopping. You already have your branded keywords live, some good non-brand keywords. If you're not exploring something like dynamic marketing, obviously you should be doing that. But outside of the realm of the necessities, there's a few other things like the Gmail ads, general display ads. There's a few different ways to kind of utilize them with targeting. I think it depends on, number one, your budget, number two, your performance on what you already have running. If you feel like you're in a good place and you feel like you're capturing enough of the inventory by, again, looking at, impression share metrics, so how often your ad is showing, how often is it eligible to show. Once you're in a good spot there, I think that's when you have the conversation to say, okay, we're already doing as much as we can here. We need to branch out. We need to do more branding. We need to kind of get more users in the door that might not know about us. So that's when you kind of go the route of more, I guess, non-traditional, by way of, in my opinion, probably with AdWords, the display side, although the YouTube ads are also a great way to get some exposure as well.
Looking at your customer, I think you can use it for net new, you can use display for net new targeting or remarketing, obviously, and I think looking at your customer journey or your user journey and seeing, maybe a lot of people are going to one page, but they're not necessarily converting. You might want to then turn on remarketing display ads, for example, to send everyone something that's going to get them to convert. So maybe they learned about your product, but it was too expensive, you determined, or whatever it might be. So you might do a 20% off display ad to try to get people to convert, or at least, kind of start testing that. Display remarketing can be super, super effective, but it can also people out if it's done too much and too often, so you can limit impressions and kind of keep an eye on that. One of the things that I always try to remind clients of is just because you can doesn't mean you should, and you want to be careful to design what success looks like, to your point, and say, okay, I'm trying to get 10 conversions here, and so you don't just keep, because there's kind of becomes this thing, at least I don't know, maybe it's just for me, but it seems for others as well, is these platforms you can dump a lot of money into. They can suck up a lot of money really fast. You can reach everyone, so there's a lot of optimism, a lot of excitement, and there's great tools like AdHawk and service like Elite SEM and different consultants that help people to help you out. But when you're doing it on your own, at least me, when I'm like doing a personal Shopify shop or something like that, it can kind of have like almost like a gambling mentality to it. So be careful and really define what your goals are and your success in the beginning, and then figure out what are going to, what are some of the pieces to really drive those specific goals. So I think remarketing has a great place, and it's super, super powerful, and worth experimenting with to get people who have come to your site and haven't yet converted to possibly come back and convert.
I think I said this earlier, I love display. I don't see display advertising, by the way, as non-traditional. I usually go to display first. Especially when you deploy it using video, it can be really powerful in terms of driving awareness amongst new users or new customers. I have to say there was one case of display advertising that I did not do it myself, but whoever did should be a saint. I was reading a New York Times article about how awful Uber was last summer, and I was traveling for work, and I got contextual ads throughout the entire story about Lyft and how great Lyft was and how I should become a Lyft user. I screenshotted it because I was like, wow, you really did this well, Lyft, but I find that contextual aspect to be really kind of fascinating. I've used display advertising for crisis comms response in terms of combating terrible news stories, and it's quite effective. Also, I'm a very true believer in I think visual always is going to be more impactful than text.
Yeah, I think what you have to look at the end of the day is like, what is the conversion rate from your ads? What is the CPA target you're looking for? I think, to be honest, if I look at all of our customers and all the accounts I've ever seen, and that's a small percent of all of the money obviously spent out there, but 90% of the customers I see spend their money on search. Now there are reasons for display, and I'll just use our business for an example. So if we want to bid on the keyword digital advertising software, that's like $40 a click, right? So we know our conversion rates, and we can simply do the math. We don't even have to test it. We know what our conversion rates are. Generally with those keywords, we know how much the cost per click is, and we know that it's just not mathematically worth it for us. So as a business, we tend to do more display because the keywords are just astronomical for what our LTV is and what we're kind of looking for. So you can back out those numbers a little bit and kind of decide how much money should go to search, how much money should go display. We mentioned Gmail ads. I think Gmail ads are pretty cool. You can target people based on what they say in their email. You used to be able to target people based on who they're getting emails from, but now I think it's only what they say in their email. Is that correct? We've done some pretty cool stuff like that. So you could do something where, let's use the Uber Lyft example. Anyone saying Uber in the ads, in their email, Lyft shows a picture of Lyft and why they're so great. One thing we've done that was just a little bit more interesting was anyone who's, I don't remember the targeting, but with some keywords that they were saying, instead of showing our logo and like a big image, we actually put instead of our logo was a picture of my face. The subject line said Todd from AdHawk, and the image was more of like a email. So it was more like a paid email drip campaign rather than just an ad. But I thought that was just an interesting way to use one of Google's tools that isn't super traditional. But I think that's why I like Gmail. It's unique. No one else can serve Gmail ads, obviously. And there's a whole bunch of different things you can do. And it's a new platform where it's evolving. There's more and more tools coming out for it. Clicks are... again, to give you an idea, our clicks are $40 on Gmail, the clicks are 10 cents. So I can afford exponentially more clicks there. So yeah, less competition. So Google's always coming out with new things like Gmail ads or other display sites or other YouTube betas and that type of stuff. So there's just so much out there.
I'm glad you brought up Gmail again. One other thing I want to do point out about Gmail that's new, with all the machine learning of the data collection from Google, the newest and shiniest feature with Gmail and Google itself is life event targeting. So now you can target people if they're just married or they're looking to move or they're changing jobs, like a lot of different things, like are they having a baby? Google is finding all this data through your searches, your websites that you visit, and they're bucketing people into different audience pools, like you mentioned. So that's another reason why audiences are so powerful. The other thing I'll say, before you branch out to a new channel, whether it be social, shopping, if you're not doing that, display, just make sure you understand what those channels do for your business, like what's the end goal. Because chances are, if you're working with someone who is just pitching you ideas, whether it be someone from agencies, a consultant, or someone from Google. A Google specialist, in my opinion, is a Google salesman. They're going to be telling you, hey, you can spend here because you're going to get more traffic, but in reality, that might not be the best for you. So it's important to just understand what the main goal of these channels is for you and your business before you do any expansions.
That's great. And the next question I had was, and then just maybe two more, and then we'll open it up to the audience for questions. Do you use any automation tools or any tools on top of the AdWords? Or if not, you can certainly pass, but do you have any thoughts on ways of AdWords that can be not optimized, but automated, actually, to make it a little easier to optimize?
Yeah, so I can start with this one. Chances are, I believe everyone here is just using AdWords, not using any type of third-party tracking tool, I would assume. So if you're doing AdWords, their whole gambit of smart bidding has a lot of different features to kind of optimize your campaigns. So again, it's looking at all your conversion data over the past 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, etc. There's a few ways to do that. There's maximize clicks or target position. The two main things or areas in smart bidding that I like the most is target CPA and target return ad spend. Again, that's really geared towards whatever vertical or goals you have. Are you looking for leads, or are you looking for someone to sign up for an email? Target CPA might be your best bet there. If you're looking to try to maximize sales at a given fixed ROI, target ROAS is that one as well. You can do all these different types of bid strategies for the most part across most of the Google tactics. Some have limitations, but as I mentioned earlier, smart bidding and just AI in general has become a much bigger aspect of Google. 2 years ago, if you asked me about smart bidding and AI in Google, I'd say, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do manual bidding. Past year, it's been getting much better. I would say so far this year, they're doing much, much more, again, with more of their data collection. So it's not perfect. You have to keep an eye on it, but chances are it can relieve a lot of stress, headaches, and more importantly, a lot of work off your plate.
All right, so I have an interesting opinion here, considering we build software to automate a lot of this. Listen, I think there's no software that's ever going to work unless you have a lot of data. So unless you have a lot of data, you're not just going to plug in some software. It's never going to work. I'm a fan of Google's automation. My only concern with some of Google's automation, similar to the Google account managers being a little bit salesy, I like having things in my control, and the more control I give to Google, they put me exactly where I need to be in the economy and their efficiency, and I want to beat that efficiency. It's not to say it's bad. It's a great place to start if you don't want to use a third-party tool. So the first thing, make sure you have a lot of data if you're going to use automation. The second thing, and I can tell you this just as bluntly as possible, is there's no automation that's 100% going to work without any human help. Listen, we build software, and we are mostly engineers on our team, but what we realized was you still need strategy. You still need to understand really what the goal is. The software isn't going to talk to you and really understand that your lifetime value is $100, but with red shirts it's $125, but you really want to sell more blue shirts. It doesn't matter about the red shirts, right? So software is great, and it's going to help you, and there's a whole slew of optimization, whether that's in Google or a third-party tool like AdHawk. But regardless, you always are going to need a human strategy or some sort of element to make sure that what you're doing is set up correctly for what you actually want it to do. We see customers come to us wanting to use the software, but the campaigns aren't set up well. They don't know what their goals are. They don't know really the mix that they want at all. So software is not going to save you from that. You can't just go buy a software and say it's going to work for you.
I think those hit the points of automation perfectly, and it really a little bit of the work up front to figure out again, who you're targeting and what you're going after, what your goals are really as a business, and whether you're selling that blue shirt, red shirt, because one has higher cost of goods and another one, you keep an eye on that. Otherwise, automation can. All these tools are marketing technology is amazing. We're in a great place with it right now, but it just means we can do more with what we have, and it's not everything. So, relying on tools too heavily, I think, is really still requires your touch and your insights. And then something I'll say to that point is, starting a spreadsheet very early on if you don't have it to, kind of find your own metric for what you consider traction to be and what you consider a good amount of traction to be within all the different AdWords capabilities, but also other channels as well, is very important. What gets measured gets managed. So consistently looking at that and taking a really humble view of it and figuring out what works for your business long term, short term. Maybe you can spend a ton in acquire customers because you have a big LTV, lifetime value, and you'll get it back later. Maybe not, but keep an eye on your average order value, keep an eye on your lifetime value, and what your goal is for each individual campaign. And traction has different meaning for everyone. Whether if your average order value is $1,000, then to get statistically significant data, it's going to be really expensive to test multiple things. So try figure that stuff out in the beginning. Set your goals clearly and your dependencies.
I personally haven't worked with the automation tools that are now available in Google, but I will say that one of the issues I've seen with a lot of clients is just simply a lack of organization from the get-go of their campaigns. It's not just having a clear idea and vision of what you're trying to achieve with your campaign. It's also the actual administrative sort of back of house work. So that's making sure that your Google Tag Manager is set up properly, making sure that your analytics account is set up properly, that your tags are applied properly, especially if you're using social, even tying your Google Analytics to your email messaging service. They seem like really stupid and very simple tasks, but I can tell you at National Grid, it took us 3 months just to set up our tie from email marketing to analytics because people didn't believe it existed. So that's something I would just simply add to that. I think the people part is really important.
Email alerts and analytics are super useful and underused.
No, I'm talking about the actual, people opened up my marketing email, and now I want to see where they came from. And I had lots of people tell me that did not exist, but it does. So anyway.
Okay, well, I think we can open it up to some conversations from the audience. You can speak loudly.
Yeah.
I think we could probably hear you.
Yeah, so I just wanted to continue on this topic before we get away from the automation because it's a big talk, artificial intelligence, machine learning. And when you're working with AdWords, anything you Google AdWords stream, with the blue waves, they have a really good branding thing going on. They're pretty good, so I gave them a chance and I plugged them into my account. And I'm a control freak. You were saying Google, which is like gambling, I hate it. I'm like a bunch of negative keywords as much as I can, control freak. But anyway, so I let them peek into my account, and I would receive customized emails from them every day about where I'm at. It was great. As a matter of fact, I think one time I just sent it as a report to my boss. Like this is where we're at. SEM Rush, another one, right? So these are great tools, and I kind of want to hear more about you guys, especially AdHawk, because this is happening, artificial intelligence today now, and I want to hear what else is out there and maybe the prices of it. So before we get off topic, I don't know if...
And he was not paid to ask that question.
And I won't say this either, but I previously bought WordStream a couple times and actually evaluated AdHawk and was jumping from WordStream to AdHawk for another company.
How much were you paid?
Zero.
So WordStream is definitely our biggest competitor, to be very transparent out there. The thing I like that WordStream does that we do very similar is we have a software side of the business where customers come on, they use the software kind of by themselves. But what's nice about what WordStream does and what we do, I'm sure there's other softwares out there that offer this, is for people that want full control, you're not going to put your ads in a black box and say just go and do this. Now there are softwares that do that. Probably the biggest one, like Marin software, which a lot of big companies use. It's a really powerful tool, but it's very black box. You kind of put it in and it's going to run. Now what us and WordStream do, just so everyone knows, is we kind of send these recommendations that you can accept or reject. Now what makes us a little bit different than WordStream, without turning this into a big sales thing in front of everyone, but we focus on not just keyword bid adjustments, although keyword bid adjustments are really good. We look at those as like the baseline. Where our software tries to focus on outside of that is what's called bid adjustments. So in the day-to-day optimization, what you're doing inside of Google, you're going to be doing bid adjustments. That means increase or decrease your bids by location. That's zip code, state, country. It can get as granular as neighborhood. That's gender, that's age, that's device, that's ad schedule, that's income level. So our software is going to go across all of that. And if you can imagine, if you're trying to do this by hand, you have a 5% bid adjustment on mobile devices and a 10% bid adjustment on people ages 55 to 65, then a 5% bid adjustment on women, then a 5% bid adjustment on this income level. It basically becomes impossible to keep track of it. That's where our software is able to come in to really figure out like exactly how much you're bidding on each individual audience and give you full control of the optimizations. The reason I bring up the red or green shirt example is because you can plug in for our software what your goal is, a target CPA, a target CPC, and that type of stuff. But what it comes down to is some customers say, yes, I'm selling blue shirts cheaper than red shirts, but I just want to sell more red shirts. And in that case, you can tell the system reject or accept. If you reject it, nothing will actually happen. So it'll give you full control of your account and kind of be your assistant rather than just taking everything away from you and not getting input from you. But I'm happy to talk about it after this.
Hey, John.
What advice would you give to the do-it-yourself business owner who's trying to figure out AdWords? And I mean, the biggest problem I have is that I'm like trying to figure it out, and I don't know if I need to give more time to optimize or if I'm doing something wrong. So for like Facebook, I have like a hard budget of like 3x my target CPA or 5x my CPA, and if an ad set hits that without any conversions or whatever, I just shut it off, right? So is there any hard rule for AdWords or Google Shopping or anything like that?
I would say the one thing I would look at quickly is, are you an e-commerce store? Yeah. Okay, the first thing I would look at, I would look at your search terms, right? So on search and shopping, you can look at your search terms, which is actually like what people are searching into Google. If those aren't right and relevant, nothing else is going to matter. So the reason I say look at that first is because as long as that's accurate, there's other things you could diagnose. So at first, look at the search terms. If you are an e-commerce store and you're running Google Shopping, I would suggest looking up how to use priority levels. It's a really tough thing to explain in like 2 minutes up here, and I'm happy to do it after this, but I would look up priority levels, how to utilize priority levels within Google Shopping. We've seen people have like 30% CPA decreases by just simply using priority levels. So I would just check out those two things specifically.
For Google Shopping, like the title of your product is really important, right? So how do you go about, I guess if you have to change the title of your product, how do you like go about doing research for that or doing that?
I can answer it really differently. So you can do competitive research, right? Like you could type in the product, look at who's number one, and there's a really good chance they have a pretty high quality score, and you could take some of that, to be frank. There's also good softwares out there that we work with, like GoData Feed, or there's a lot of feed optimization services. But honestly, a lot of our customers that are using Shopify or one of them and are using Google Shopping, they are able to plug in the Google Shopping app. You can then, inside of Merchant Center, you can actually connect that to a Google Sheet. That way you can control your whole feed from just a simple sheet, and you can edit it, and as soon as you edit it, automatically goes to Google. There's some simple things that you can do, like brand dash description of product dash, gender, or kind of, it depends, maybe size. But what I would do is I would look at the patterns in which your competitors are doing it, right? So if your competitor is Macy's, look at one of Macy's products in Google Shopping and look at the kind of pattern in which they're doing and just match that pattern.
And what Deidre said earlier about context and like your ad for competitive research, but also like imagine or even Photoshop your ad into the final thing, into that context of what you're going to be showing up in, because one call to action or one product description might be really useful on its own, or if you could literally ask someone like which one's better, but once it's in context of 12 other competitors, your offer needs to stand out. Your product description should probably stand out a little bit, but also similar so they can see it's apples to apples.
Yeah. One last thing I'll say is like titles are important, but if you look at your search terms and your search terms are good, changing the titles isn't going to help you, right? If the search terms are all good and people are searching for the right things but not buying, you either have a website issue or there's something else wrong with the campaign. You could obsess for 20 hours a day over the titles and change them a million times, but still come up with the same search terms. So diagnose the search terms. If they're correct, I would look outside of titles and look at, are you spending all your money on mobile devices? Are you spending all your money with the wrong gender? Or is there something wrong with your landing page? I can tell you the two mistakes I see in every account. If someone says it's not working, if I had only look at two things, it would be search terms, and I would go to settings and devices, and I'd probably see that you're spending 98% of your money on mobile devices, and you just have to make a small adjustment there. Like, those are the two, without looking at account, things I always look at, and generally one of those is misaligned.
Time also, time can be a big one as well when people are clicking and when turning it on and off. And I think a non-AdWords piece that's really, really interesting and important that I feel like I learned a little bit later in life was pricing. Like your actual pricing, especially for an e-commerce store. There's a great book called Priceless by William Poundstone, and there's some really interesting like rules of pricing that work with psychology, and the littlest changes can make a really big deal, especially in context of other people's ads.
Two more things on that too. First, if you're trying to analyze if your campaigns are performing okay, not performing okay, are you linked with GA, Google Analytics? So you can also look at other metrics like bounce rate, time on site, average session duration, kind of by a campaign level to kind of see, okay, these keywords like just really aren't doing it for me. Like people get there, they bounce. So then you can start asking yourself, okay, is it something with price? Price is huge. People don't understand how big price is in today's world, especially when people shopping where you can see all the prices right there. The other thing with that is just overall landing page feel. It could be a landing page experience type of thing. There's a lot of stats where if your landing page loads within 3 seconds, you have a great conversion rate. Every 1/10 of a second past 3 seconds, it drops astronomically to the point where if your landing page takes more than, I think, 6 seconds to fully load, people are just going to drop off. They're not going to convert. So that's another big thing to look out for. And then on Todd's point about mobile, mobile is a great tool to get your name out there, brand awareness more. How often do you buy something on your mobile phone? Chances are it could be maybe 30-40%, but most of the time you're going to research, maybe price compare, work the next day in the morning, get there, let's buy it. So mobile's another area that you see a lot of spend going to, but not the best conversion rates. So chances are if you cut mobile out, you could see your conversion rate start to go up.
So when you say like search terms, so like let's say you search for like red dress, like your product description doesn't have to contain red dress, right?
So yeah.
Like let's say when you say search terms, right? Let's say like you bid for the term red dress with Google Shopping, right? And then your item pops up, but the actual product doesn't have to have those keywords in it, or it does.
So Google Shopping works, right, by looking at your title. I think it still looks at the first part of your description. I could be wrong. They kind of change it, but it looks at the title and generally the first 50 or so characters of the description. It also honestly knows based on your feed what your products are, right? Based on you put in the brands, you put in the sizes, and it kind of gets a sense of what those things are. What search terms? So search terms can be looked at on shopping and Google search. This isn't just for e-commerce stores, right? So if you put a keyword into Google and you say, I want to bid on bike shop, you could come up for bike shop, or you could come up for jobs at bike shops, or you could come up for like pictures of bikes, depending on how you put in that keyword. So whether you're using a search campaign or a shopping campaign, you're not going to show up for exactly that keyword or that title unless you're using exact match in search and you have some very, very sophisticated funnel strategy with shopping. But search terms are actually what the person typed into Google. So I would comb through that and get a sense of like, is the traffic good? Because if that traffic isn't relevant, you're never going to succeed. On top of search terms, I can't stress enough, look up how to use Google Shopping priority levels because it's the only way to manage search terms within Google Shopping. Most people don't know how to use it. If you simply can just get it set up, you already out-efficiency the market, which generally means you can have a lower CPA than what the average is.
It's strong. We after that 36x ROAS on the top campaign. A lot of them up in the high levels like that. If you if you work it right.
Yeah, I wish I could talk all day about priority levels on Google Shopping, but I wasn't asked to do that. But it's a great thing. I would definitely look it up.
Let's do 2 more questions, and then we can put a little bit more time in the space, so we can certainly ask questions afterwards. I think you had your hand up first.
So when you have a diverse audience,
Can you just speak up a little bit? So
when you have a diverse audience, how do you do the customer segmentation and when it comes to choosing the correct AdWords?
I mean, if you already have an audience, there's things you can do inside of Google Analytics, and you can look at, figure out who makes up the most, who's your most ideal part of that audience. But this is why I like the jobs to be done methodology, and why personas fall short, I think, without it, because you could have 2 people that look totally different, and the product is doing the same job for them. It's the same value, but their psychographic, demographics, everything is totally different. So you focus in on what that is, and then that also lends really well to figuring out search terms very specifically for the moment those people are looking for. I know that's kind of a general answer, but within GA and within some other places, you can also find some of that other targeting information that'll help you connect and target. I think anytime looking at your customer user analysis, figuring out who makes up the most of your, who makes up 80% of your business, and trying to optimize for those people versus maybe it's that 20% that still money is hard to walk away from, but you got focusing on the ideal gives more space to delight those people throughout the entire journey, which is your point about your in the landing pages and having a good journey through and through is super important. AdWords, any of these are just they're tools to get people in and to get them back, but really to convert people, you got to speak human, you got to give them the true value, and then you got to delight them as they while they use your product and afterwards, so that they can refer more people in.
Yeah, I would also say that not every campaign has to be you have to attract every single one of your customers, right? This campaign could be attracting 20% of this audience, and this campaign could be you could have 100 campaigns each going after 1% of your audience if you really wanted to do that. So don't think of it as I have a diverse audience, they all have to be slammed into this one campaign. You can build multiple campaigns specifically tailored for that audience. If you know this audience is very price sensitive, all of your ads should mention price. Maybe the site links and call out extensions to mention something about how cheap your prices are. If you have a different audience that cares a lot about support, maybe you want to mention that in a different campaign. So you can break them up in campaigns any way you want. One thing I would say if you are going to do that is if you have a $100 budget, I'm again just making things up, you don't want to spread yourself too thin where it's $2, $2, $2, because nothing will ever get done. The one thing you can do if you are going to have a lot of campaigns is you to use a shared budget. So in AdWords, you can just say share this budget across all of these campaigns. That way, at least you're spending the whole amount of money. It's not trying to spend $2 here and $2 there, because generally, if you do it that way, you only end up spending 40% of your money just because it's too small of a budget.
okay. One last question, all the way in the back.
When you do A/B testing, how do you define statistical significance? Is it 10%, 5%? And I know it will vary depending on what you do, but in general.
You want to go?
There's so many variables. I think before even statistical significance, one thing would be really important when A/B testing. The mistake I see commonly
is changing too many variables between the tests. Try to just change one small thing. It's one of them says free shipping, one doesn't, for example. Statistical significance, I don't know. I'm not a statistician. I'm pretty bad at it, actually. I usually use the automated things in MailChimp that say this is big enough. But for example, if you're testing 2 subject lines in an email, it's MailChimp says it's 5,000 people. I think it depends on time. It depends on impressions. Do you guys have any good ways of calculating that?
Yeah, I mean, typically if I'm A/B testing, first off, I'm trying to determine what do I want to learn. Do I want to learn if my user is going to click more likely on this language, or am I trying to learn, okay, if I send this user to this page, are they going to have a bigger cart, a bigger AOV, better conversion rate, you name it. So depending on what it is, if it's ad copy, landing page, whatever it is, chances are it's going to be 2 things you're testing, a control and a test variable. There's a lot of calculators online, like a stat significant calculator, where you can just input what you were trying to get with how many participants you got in it. and that'll kind of run the two numbers side by side and say, okay, based on this data, it's 95% statistically significant that test variation 1 has a 35% better conversion rate. So any test that we do, we always run it through a stat significant calculator, just the way it does. Sorry, that's just the way it works, because if we don't, then we're just making assumptions. If we just say, okay, we probably think 100 clicks makes sense, and let's just say test variation 2 has 90 clicks, so this is pretty close, and let's just go with that. Chances are it might not be. You might only have a 60% stat sig there, so you want to continue to test, and you're only going to realize that if you run it through one of those calculators. So you can just Google it, find out a free one you can use. It's probably going to be the first SEO link that you'll see there.
Yeah, I would say lastly with that, right, there's so many things you can test. You can test landing page, you can test ad copy, you can test keywords, site link. You could basically test everything. I wouldn't just test things to test them. Right? If you're a B2B company, testing landing pages is probably the most important. If you're an e-commerce company, you're going to send them to the product page for the product they click on. There's not that. You could try other pages. You could also change colors of buttons, and you could drive yourself crazy that way. What I would honestly say, and most of the people I talk to are spending $5,000 and below, and that's the more budget you have, the more you can test. If at the end of the day, if you're a locksmith and you're bidding on the word locksmith, and people are getting to your site and not converting, and the search terms look good, there's something just inherently broken somewhere, right? So don't just test to test. Like, make sure you get a little bit of a baseline, like what does success look like. Make sure that we see people that say they want to test things, and when you look at it, their search terms are all over the place, and they're testing landing pages, but the truth is, like, they forgot about the core, like the general just traffic was bad. So before you A/B test, make sure like the baseline is there, the keywords are right, the search terms are right, or else you're just going to be testing like nothing against nothing a little bit.
And on that point, I think a good looking for the friction point, figuring out what to test. Like,
if you look at the entire journey from click to actual purchase, if no one's getting to purchase, but everyone's getting to one point, you might want to focus your energy there in A/B testing. If you can't get clicks, then maybe it is, it's either your search terms or it's your actual copy, whatnot.
And just one final thing I'll say there, testing is just the most important thing, in my opinion, in this realm. I mean, the way I see it, half the reason clients pay us is to test and learn new things about their business, their audience. So don't be afraid to test. Carve out some testing budget and say, hey, this test fails, it's whatever. That's fine, because you're going to learn something. If it succeeds, you get a better conversion rate, click-through rate, that's great. You learn exactly why that's the case. If it fails, you know exactly why as well. So there's no test that is bad, per se. And it really just depends on the way you look at the data, and make sure that you have some budget to test and don't get too stressed about it.
Fantastic. Well, that wraps up the panel. I think they're going to allow us to stay at least for a little bit. So if you have questions, maybe some of us or some of the panel members will stick around and can answer any more questions that you have. Big thank you to all of you for showing up. Big thank you to our sponsors to make it all happen: Rally Mine, Aori, and Ali the Space. Last but not least, our great panel. I for one learned a ton.